It's a gas, a sarin for high T, a C4HNFO2P, put you on your knees. I'm sulfur dichloride with ethylene. I say it again. I am chemistry. Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. We played D&D last night, and this is the Q&A where we talk about how things went last night. This was the first game with more than one player that you guys have seen. Oh, people are seeing ads, which means happily they didn't have to listen to me singing. If my audio doesn't sound too good, that's because I left an important component of my AV system at work yesterday, and so I had to kind of make do and scrounge up some stuff. So let's see. We played last night. This is the 1 hour and 1 hour only Q&A about how the game went, and hopefully you guys got a chance to see it. I realize it's only been not even 24 hours, so those of you who missed it probably haven't had time to catch up on the stream. I apologize, but I suspect that regardless of what order you will watch this in, the Q&A will be useful because we're going enough people will ask the right questions that even if you didn't see it last night, we'll cover it. Excuse me 1 second. Tiny cat, what are you doing, silly kitty? What are you doing? Oh my goodness, tiny kitty. You are the best kitty I am petting right now. Yes, you are. Yes, you is. Oh, he scratched your ears. Stream has options today. Cat? Where? Oh, you mean tiny cat. And if I had got this cat now, I would not have named her Tiny Cat because she was very tiny when I got her. Now, I would name you Floofy Cat. Yes. Meow. Oh, she does not like being upside down. Tiny kitty. I'm a good kitty daddy. You gotta trust me on that. So let's see. How did things go last night? We got a bunch of comments from people in the on the Reddit thread. I have my own subreddit, weirdly, which if you would ask me a week ago, I would have said, no, that's crazy. Why would I have my own subreddit? But a bunch of people asked if I had a subreddit, and I thought maybe I should jump on /Matt Colville before somebody else does. And it just seemed like a good place to put all the notes and stuff and PDFs so that, a lot of people ask me in on Twitter, and it's clear that they're watching. It's clear that they're watching my videos. Who was that? It is Deathwind Seth. Deathwind Seth, welcome. It's clear they've watched the videos, but of course and they're like, hey, do you have a link to the? And I'm like, well, yeah, in several videos, but obviously not the one you watched because it's not in every video. So I figured the subreddit was a good place to put all this stuff. So let's see. His mic seems different. Yeah, unfortunately, look, it's still the same mic, but it's going through a much more primitive digital audio converter. I apologize, but hopefully you can still hear me. I tested it, and it sounds actually it's much more analog now. Microphone sound is digital. The new sub sound is a bit loud. Your mom's a bit loud. Let me turn it down a little bit. Sorry. There's no reason why you guys should be able to hear this at all. So one of the common threads, blue fries, number 13. Blue fries are my favorite fries. One of the common comments let's just go through the Reddit comments. Zaborazor. Next time I play a half orc, I think Zaborazor is a good name for him. So one thing the chat discussed, right, and this is true because hello from Australia. Hello, Australia. I have lots of friends in Australia. I have lots of friends in Australia. I have lots of friends in New Zealand. I don't think I have any friends in Old Zealand, although I might. I'm not sure where it is. I think it's somewhere in Scandinavia. One thing the chat discussed was that Lars didn't want to seem to tell me any of his plans. Yeah, you guys watched, right? You saw that every time I would ask Lars what he was doing, he would give me a look and he'd be like, let's talk about it later. And there was a lot of me feeling like I was pulling teeth trying to get Lars to tell me what he was doing. And I think if you were watching the stream, your perception was that Lars was being kind of intractable. But first of all, Lars he's not none of these, like Anna is one of the most outgoing people. I was right, Denmark is around that area. And I was close. I was close. Give me some credit. But Lars, it was a couple of different things were happening at once. One, Lars is running a thieves guild, so some of the times I was asking him stuff, he didn't want to tell me in front of God and everybody because part of the fun of running a thieves guild is having secrets. But that's fine. Write me a note. We both have our phones. Text me. But instead, he would say, "Oh, I'll tell you later." Another thing, but that was separate. There were several different things all contributing to what you perceive as the same behavior, but they were all different things. Another thing was Lars and I had been talking a lot in the past couple of weeks about what he was doing in his downtime. And so I was asking him where he was or what he was doing, and he felt like, well, Matt, you already know the answer to that. We just talked about that. I'm like, yeah, but I don't remember because I've got, people are often like, wow, how do you keep all this stuff in your head? And I'm like, I don't. I forget stuff all the time. There's only so much room, and you put things fall out. And so I wanted to be reminded. And Lars was saying, I don't want to waste time going over that. You know what it is. And I was like, no, I don't. Let me know. And then there were other issues where he didn't necessarily like want the stream to know what was happening because he wanted things to be a surprise later. So there was a bunch of stuff. Let's see, am I missing anything? What's the bleep bleep? So every time that bidoop is the sound of somebody subscribing, a new subscriber, and it's coming from, you're hearing it, I think, from my speakers because I improperly set it up. You should be hearing it from your speakers, but you're not. So that's only because I'm not that. I don't know. I'm learning all of this stuff, and that's on top of learning a whole bunch of other stuff. So that was Lars. Lars is he is not none of these players. This is one of the things where I kind of feel like watching the stream back today and watching Twitch chat, I started to regret the idea of streaming the game because these folks are not actors. They only signed up for this because I said I wanted to do it, and they're like, okay, they don't care one way or the other. They really weren't thinking about the stream while we were playing. They were just playing D&D, but now they're the people watching them. And as I watched that, I'm like, you know what? Like, Lars is one of my favorite people. I love Lars. He's like a brother. And he's the reason we are playing D&D right now at all. Like, I wanted to run D&D for him. And then people in chat are like, wow, he's super salty. He's this, that, and the other thing. And I don't actually think Lars cares what people in Twitch chat think. But I do, because he's my friend. And so I'm suddenly like, oh, I don't know if it was a good idea to expose everybody to this. So we'll see if we keep doing this. I want to do at least one more stream. It's also just a colossal amount of work. I mean, it's Jerry, you know what do you guys think of the overlay, the Atari Adventure overlay? I think it's beautiful. I love it. I am fantastic. No, Zaborazor, I'm a bass. It's although I can do some tenor. I forgot what the hell I was talking about. It's a colossal amount of work. When I show up, I can't set up my D&D stuff and start going through my notes. I have to help Jerry with the stream. I have to help Jerry set everything up. And that's in addition to the often hours of work Jerry has already done. Like when I rolled into the office, like he had all these huge stands and mics and everything all set up. And I'm like, this is a lot of work. And and then my buddy Bob, my friend Jordy, was monitoring a Twitch chat for me. I asked him to do that because he'd been watching the streams anyway, and I was like, "Would you do me a favor?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take care of that." So and Jordy already helps him run. Did you guys see the handouts? In fact, if you didn't see the handouts, this is what. Yeah, I love the overlay too. That's a lot of work. So these are my notes, and then these are things my friend Jordy, my friend Bob did for me in Photoshop. And because I'm not that good at Photoshop, and he's super into like layers and all that stuff and all these effects and stuff. And I sent him the text and the images, and he gave me these back in Photoshop. I was able to open up and export them out. And so I'm like, my game is already me as a DM stealing stuff from my buddy Jim all the time, stealing stuff from Matt or everybody's game I've seen that I like. I rip that off. All the notes. It takes me, I don't know. It takes me about. I'm thinking about the game the entire time. It takes me a while to get these notes prepped. I would say 2 or 3 hours. It takes me to write these notes and do research and figure stuff out. And then on top of that, having to help with the stream. So I don't get just because there's a lot of work. And so we're going to do, I think, at least one more. I want you guys to see all 7 players at the table. But after that, we might stop and say, look, I wanted to show you guys my game. And I wanted to give you an idea of how I run things and make it seem doable. And I think I've done that, right? I think by the time you will have seen the 3rd stream, I think you will have seen, you know, everything there is to see, basically. And anyone who, in the months or years to come, comes to my YouTube channel and goes, wow, this guy has a lot of advice. I wonder what he's like as a DM. They'll be like, oh, look, here are some videos. I can watch him. And I really wanted to show you guys, like, I am not, like, you can, it's easy to watch my YouTube videos and think, wow, this guy is a master. And it's like, I don't know, I screw up a lot. I'm often super critical of the old, I think all creative people are hypercritical of the work. And so, adding viewers to that process, like I think Matt has the luxury of Geek and Sundry. Matt, he just shows up to run, and they have this whole production. Not a kitty cat. Hello, tiny kitty, I love you. So he has a whole production running, and me, I'm part of that production. And so, so we'll see. I mean, there are people who like watching the game. It's 4 hours, which is crazy. And a lot of those people already watch 4 hours of Critical Role, so what? So don't be surprised if after the next video we stop for a while. And maybe I'll go back to the half-hour recaps. A lot of people like the half-hour recaps because they're dramatic. This isn't hubris, I am a professional storyteller. I'm not a professional dungeon master, and those guys are not professional players. They're just themselves being themselves. Somebody on Reddit, we'll get to that, asked, you know, how do you get somebody like Lars? How do you get, a lot of these players seem they didn't role play, they didn't talk in character. How do you get them to stop doing that? And I'm like, I don't. They literally said, how do you get them to play like they're supposed to? And I was like, supposed to? No, they are playing like they're supposed to. They are my friends. I had a lot of fun. They had a lot of fun. So, I know there are people who like watching the game, but we have to come up with a system. And this is part of the process. I wanted to stream on Twitch because I wanted to see how hard is it, how many people are going to watch. If 10,000 people were watching, I would be like, okay, well, let's keep going because that's a ridiculous number of people to let down. But right now we have a relatively small audience. And so I think the audience for the YouTube, I have to respect the audience I built up on the YouTube channel. Those people are looking for more videos and the stream kind of cuts into some of that time. All right, so let's scroll up and see if I've missed any questions. Let's see. Is Anna's character, she's a barbarian who just took, she's a 5th level barbarian who just took 1 level of cleric. Gertz is a cool guy. Yeah, he is. He's super cool. All the people, I think all the people at the table, there are no people in this game that you're going to meet that I don't love, that I don't think are awesome. Yeah, no, Slate B, it's funny because Matt Mercer did retweet me saying, hey, I'm about to run D&D. And I think that got us a bump of about 100, 150 viewers. I think most of the viewers in the stream were people who were already watching. How am I so patient with my players? I think you are so patient with the players. How do you do it? I love them. I love watching them work stuff out. I don't mind sitting there and listening to them talk to each other and exchange information. I'm a big proponent of, maybe we should do a video about this someday. I'm a big proponent of, it doesn't always work, of, like you ask a question, or what does my character know? I'm gonna make a check, a religion check. What does my character know about this? And I write down what your character knows and I hand it to you. That doesn't always work. And the reason I do that is because when I do it, and I don't do it as much lately because it fails a lot, I want you to give that information in character. However that is to you. Either you just say, oh, I remember this, you know, do it in your voice, do it not in second person, describing yourself, however you do it. I want to come from you in your own words. Remember your teacher used to say, cover the subject and say this stuff in your own words, right? But often what happens is when I make a note and give something to a player, instead of them reading the note and then thinking about it and saying it naturally the way their character would, they just read the note out loud. And I'm like, okay, well, I could have done that. So that's a big part of my game, you've noticed, is the players exchanging information with each other that I could have just told all of them. I know they got that information from me in the first place. I could have just told the entire group, but I don't like doing that. I like it when the players are learning stuff from each other. I think that's a big part of my game, and that's something I only started noticing once I watched the stream. Let's see. The overlay was cool. I loved it. Hopefully, whoever owns Atari these days doesn't freak out. It is a much more accurate representative of the average D&D game, but how much of that do you need before you've seen it? That's my point. Consider that. How much of that do you need to see? Let's see. I think we all understand watching me play is a more down-to-earth experience. Was that right? Is that Telly Savalas? Yeah. Actually, all of these characters. Are you ready? So this is the great thing about having run this game. If you start running now, and you're a young person, which you are if you're watching this, younger than me, if you keep doing it, then 20, 30 years from now, you just have this huge backlog of players that you can reach out to and say, hey, this is my friend Jim's character in my friend Bob's Condemned campaign. This is my character in my friend Bob's campaign, except I changed the name because Ottavio De Cuserto is my guy. This is my friend Dave's character. This is my friend Mark's character in my friend Bob's Condemned, his Suicide Squad game where we're all prisoners. So that's and those players got those pictures. Not me, I didn't do it. Those players went and did it. So that was easy. Let's see. Whoa, everyone loves Kurtz. People are saying don't stop. Well, it's going to be up to me. It's going to be up to what I think is the best use of my time and what the purpose of the stream is. What is the purpose of the stream? What is the stream qua the stream as opposed to the stream qua the Matt Colville brand, if that makes any sense, which it doesn't. But we'll see. We'll see. If one thing I'm factoring in is the audience increasing. If there's more people watching, then I'm like, okay, well maybe this is going to go somewhere. But if it's just serving the YouTube channel, if it's just serving as an example of me running the game, then pretty soon it will have done that and we can stop. Let's see. I always talk. Zoskel10 asks if I'm talking as much as I'm doing to fill the gaps. Yeah, basically, because the players aren't as dynamic and they're not as. Why did you wait so long to get Gertz in? Oh, so let's talk about that. A lot of people in the chat were like, "Wow, Gertz is being super patient. He's just sitting there. He's not doing anything. He's probably playing games on his phone," and they felt bad for him. Don't feel bad for him. I told him, I said, we're not going to need you. My cat is crawling all over stuff. I said, Gertz, we're not going to need you for a couple of hours. And he's like, that's cool. I don't mind just hanging out. Right. So he knew what he was getting into ahead of time. And I want to, obviously, I want to introduce him at the natural moment. Right. So that's that. Meanwhile, back at the ranch plotting, where you have one thread going and it's about something, it's about to peak or something, and you go boom, and you switch to another thread, and all of a sudden now there's tension and drama and conflict. So there was the Sir Peloton thread, right, which I pushed as far as I could. If you noticed, right, I put the screws to that. I took it to the edge. I took it to the point where they were ready to go off to Bedegar. They were looking at the map and they were saying, we can get there before Sir John because we can use the way roads, the goalstones. And just as they were about to leave, the messenger with Vorkas shows up and says, a member of this group, played by a player, has been kidnapped. And they're like, okay, forget Bedegar. We have to go. So that was, Sorry, having all this facial hair makes my nose itch. I don't know what it is. Yes, this is a review of episode 2. Who's that bald hair? I saw that. I prefer the stream recaps. I prefer the stream. Recaps don't really let you see how you actually run the game. But you have now... See, I think what I'm imagining is... Excuse me. Tiny cat. Get off there. Excuse me. Pardon me. Tiny cat, do you have a question for the stream? Is that why you were trying to attract my attention so desperately? Here, you know what I think? You are... Remember how there used to be a cat in here? Out. Good times. I think what's probably going to happen is once we've set up the adventure, then from then on you don't need to see the weekly stream. I can just do the recap and people will know. I won't have to explain what the hell's going on. You will have been able to have watched it. Let's see. Scrolling down, looking for questions. Is my mic unplugged? I think somebody in the stream has probably explained. I had to get a new... I left an important component of my digital audio system at work, so I've reverted to an older setup, so my audio is not as awesome as it normally is. I apologize. Any more information about the teeth of the dragon? As I make stuff up, yes, I will put it out there. I prefer a cut down of specific encounters. I had originally imagined we would record the game and then I would chop out certain bits and talk about them, but that actually is the most time-intensive thing out of all of them. The least time-intensive thing, I think, is just to record the game, because we're playing the game anyway, might as well record it. And then then more time than that is adding another half hour of me talking about what happened. And then more than that is me adding into that half hour clips from the thing. So I thought that was how it was going to be, but now that I understand more about how this process works, it's like, no way. Um, 6:20. I don't think we're doing too bad on time. 7 players in a stream. I do like challenges. I don't think we'll see how 7 players goes, but I think you'll discover that each session is more engaging and more active because there are more players. And the group I picked were all people that I thought were net positives to the game. They're people I like hanging out with, and I don't mind playing D&D with. But once we get to 7 players, each person needs to be one of those people that is contributing something meaningful to the game, even if it's just heart, like Baltair. How do you deal with having players in different rooms for secret information? I don't like making your group wait for me to give. Then don't do it. I don't mind. I don't mind saying you guys out and these guys, because those people who are leaving are also getting the juice. That I'm telling them to leave for their sake, to make their game more enjoyable, not for the player who I'm talking to in the room. Right? If I take you outside and say, let's talk about what happens, that's not because I want you to have some secret hidden special thing. That's because I want the other players to have the experience of learning what happened to you from you. It's way more interesting, ideally. It's way more interesting when you come back in the room and go, oh my God. And they're like, what happened, right? So it's not, and your players may be different, and you're a different DM. So if you don't like it, don't do it. Let's see. So another point is that the folks on Critical Role all know each other and hang out outside of work. The guys you see on the stream, we're all coworkers, and so some of them I never see them until. And this is also true of the Critical Role guys. Like I guess there's a pretty close analogy. And we get together on the weekends and we play Talisman and stuff like that. So I take back what I was going to say. When does my game air? We're doing it Tuesday nights, probably 8 o'clock. It may be that some of them start at 7. Every frame of painting. I don't know what that reference is. X is dude, but that's a great channel. Subscribe to it. The moment when you introduced Gertz and Thomas was like, oh, that's you? Yeah. I think Tom was the only person who didn't realize who was about to show up, but Tom didn't realize. And so he had this great moment where this guy I had been describing turns out to be. See, that's one of the things I live for. Let's see if there's any more stuff here in chat. We talked about the question about Lars. That's just Lars being Lars and him. We talked about that already. I think next week, I explained to him. I said, look, if you want to tell me something and you don't want the other players to know, that's fine. Write it down and hand me a note or text me. Don't blow me off because I need to know what's going on. And I think from the beginning, Lars definitely had this, and he wasn't the only one, but he was, I think, the most like this. He had it was weird that he would tell me their plan, and then I would do things to make their plan fail. But that's the DM's job. I also do things to make their plan succeed, right? I don't solve their problems. It's their job to solve their problems. I solve their solutions, right? They come up with these ideas about how to do stuff, and if they don't tell me, then they don't find out. Like, well, Lars, you forget you gave that item you're depending on to Lady Serial. Oh, you're right. Right. So if he just spent 20 minutes planning and scheming based on this thing, I'm like, well, no, you don't understand. You guys, there's no edge to this platform. You think that there's like a fence around the edge. There isn't. You guys are literally, it's just a sheer cliff top. You're like, oh, he was making a whole plan based around some data point that wasn't, I got the other seal, by the way, that wasn't accurate. Right. So he has to tell me what he's thinking, because I am going to make sure that he understands what the consequences of his actions will be, and I make sure if there's any misalignment between the way the player perceives the world and the way I perceive the world, that is communicated so the player's plan. But then at the same time, I have to challenge the players. I've definitely played with people who completely shut the game down and no progress was made for 20 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour by the clock. No progress was made because they felt like if they were only good enough planners, they could avoid all risk. And this comes from, I think, the video game tradition, that the designers put a right answer in here. And if I can come up to there's an optimal way to do this. And my job as the DM is to introduce risk. So I think that's part of the problem. But Lars is learning, and Lars is one of my favorite players. The amulets that they brought were the bad ones, right? Only one way to find out. Keep watching. So did both options lead to the party meeting up with the other half? Yeah, this is something that when I started off this campaign, both campaigns, the Tuesday and Thursday night, at first level, It was a very sandboxy game. It wasn't a hex crawler. It was a very sandboxy game in that this is something you can do, but you have got to have been running D&D for a long time. So I don't advise trying to hit a home run your first time up at bat. But once you've been running the game several times, you've got several shots in your locker. You've run several different first level adventures. And it's like, oh, I like that first level adventure. That was fun. I like that one. I didn't like Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. Everybody else did, but I didn't, whatever it's down to taste. But I liked Against a Cult of the Reptile God, and I liked the Moat House, and I like this, that, and the other thing. So when I start a game, I seed all these different adventures, and I always throw new ones in and throw old ones out. So when the players show up on the scene, there are multiple different threads that they can pick up and put down. I don't know that analogy. That might be a not good analogy. Do you pick up and put down threads? They can follow each of these threads at their discretion. And in fact, Lars very obliquely made a reference to that when Anna's like, wait a minute, if we go save Razlax, what's going to happen in Bedegar? We don't have enough time. And Lars is like, we never have enough time. And that's when I said, and he was reminding Anna of that. And that's when I said, the clock is always ticking. In fact, the clock is always ticking was a phrase I use in my game to remind the players that if you go down this thread, these threads advance. Right? And then when you come back, it's like you can't solve every problem. That's unrealistic, right? The clock is always ticking. And only after I'd been doing that for quite some time did I realize that the clock is a great name for a thieves guild. And that's their passphrase. So that's a lot of fun for me. Anyway, when traveling in the Underdark, does someone get where they want to go through their own will? I was wondering exactly how they made it where they want to go. I didn't worry too much about that, Galvanator. It's a good question. But the Grey Dwarves came out of a passageway. It seemed reasonable that if the players follow that passageway, they will end up where they want to go, right? Ultimately, they may go down some dead ends. They may get some random encounters. They did get a random encounter. I really like the random encounters on Out of the Abyss. That's what I was using. Somebody asked why I use D20 instead of D12s. When I said in my random encounter video that I use D12s because Out of the Abyss uses a D20. And has 20 options. So it's a completely different system in Out of the Abyss, but I like it. I like that. I like being inspired by stuff. I like it when I see, like, that's one of the things I love about 5th edition is Mike, this is Mike Merles. Mike loves charts, random charts. He loves consulting the bones, like I do. He loves consulting the oracle, because it's much more fun for me to go, ooh, what is a black dragon doing here? Because that's an interesting question. Than it is for me to sit there and go, okay, who is here and why? That's a pain in the butt. So what happened to the player for Sir Razlax? Oh, well, you know, Silvano is awesome, and you would love watching him play. But I don't have room in my group for 12 people. And so I had to pick and choose. And even though I know Solana would like to keep playing, I don't think D&D is a hobby for him the way it is for, like, Lars, for instance. Like, Lars is someone, and this is one of the things that, like, Lars and Anna and Tom, to a lesser extent, and we'll get to that, are all people who come up to me outside of the game to talk to me about what their character wants to do. And that's how you make the cut in my... Are you in the audience or are you on stage? The people who are on stage are the ones who come up to me after the game, outside the game. They message me, they text me, and they say, can we find out how to, has anybody heard of, I'm like, okay, now you're thinking about the game outside the game. You're on stage with me. So that's one of the things that, of the 12 players I had, trying to reduce it down to 6 or 7. That's how I made those decisions. Draco393 asks, I mentioned in the last Q&A that I feel it would have been better if I had planned more for what happened after Gertz left Broken Spire Keep. However, when I DM, Draco says, I tend to improvise most things. Is this a stylistic thing? You know the answer to that. I know it's more editing, but an idea could be just record offline in case you want an example. We'll figure it out. I mean, my time is crazy. And let me think about it for a second, right? The more successful this YouTube channel becomes, the less time I have. The more things, all sorts of stuff happens. Yeah, Slate B says he wants to see one more stream. We're going to do one more stream. And we may keep going after that. It may be that the end of that stream isn't a good stopping place. It may be that the players really like streaming. It may be that they like the idea that they're... It may be that the audience continues to grow. And it may be that it's more fun and it gets easier. You know, Jerry is still working problems. Like, Jerry is still, today, was still texting me going, we can do this, we can do this. I just bought one of these, he said, and we can use it. If it doesn't work, we'll return it, right? And I'm looking at stuff. We're talking about building a computer, and not a cheap one, just to stream. There was a lot of flickering in the video last night. You guys all saw that. That's because the cameras we're using are this camera. They're the Logitech C930s or 920s, whatever they're. You know what I mean. And these are great cameras. but they're USB cameras. And once we had 3 of them hooked up to the computer with all the other USB devices, and they're all streaming video to the computer, OBS started to go, "What is going on?" and started to freak out. And so Jerry he lamented the absence of the rig we have upstairs, which is on the upper floor of where we stream Evolve. And we have basically a whole studio that we have put together there and spent a lot of money on. And it's awesome. And Jerry and I are trying to kind of jury rig a bunch of stuff on our own. And so now we're looking at, and I'm like, hang on a minute. Do we want to spend all this money? This is going to be my money I'm spending. The books don't generate that kind of capital. So this is there are a lot of sunk costs in this. I put a lot of money into this thing, and I don't mind doing that as long as I'm learning something. For me, that's the juice. Hey, let's do a YouTube video because I've never done YouTube. I had a podcast once. The reason my audio sounds today accepted. The reason my audio normally sounds so good is because of all the work I put into the podcast I used to have, where we talked about movies, and which I love and I would love to do again. And I wanted my podcast to sound amazing. I wanted it to sound like a NPR podcast. And I got close enough to be satisfied. And once I had done that and learned all the software and gotten all the hardware and produced a couple of episodes that I really thought were right, I stopped doing it and move on to the new thing and the new challenge, because I always want to be learning and accepting new challenges. Twitch was one of those things, and I'm kind of getting to the point where I feel like I understand it. Opinions on Punching Deer. Thought that was amazing. I love Tom. I love Tom so much, and I love watching him play Voltaire. He thinks a lot more about what his character would do and say than I think you might imagine, given how much he talks. Because he doesn't talk much, but he does. He's always thinking about what Voltaire would do. So let's talk about that. I'm way behind on the questions. I realize that. Twitch may have completely, the whole thing, maybe we may not even be online anymore. I wouldn't know. People were saying, wow, I said, Tom, I don't want to badger you into getting a stronghold. And people in Twitch chat were like, well, you are. And the missing piece of that puzzle is when I asked the party months ago what they wanted to do with their money, they're like, well, what can we do with it? I'm like, well, I started making lists, right? There's a birdie outside my window. You can learn a new language. You can learn a new skill. There's a bunch of stuff you can do in your downtime. But one of the things you can do in the DM's guide, but there's no reason to do it really in the DM's guide, but there's a reason to do it in my setting, is build a stronghold. And a couple of players were like, oh, that sounds cool. And Tom was one of them. He's like, what would I get for building a stronghold? He just wanted to know. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you. And I wrote up the stronghold rules, basically an adaptation from an earlier product that I worked on. And I said, here's what you would get. It's kind of 5th edition version of a monk's monastery. And you get followers and all this stuff. There's a chart you roll on. You get crazy stuff. You could get mundane things, or you can get crazy things. And he was like, oh, this sounds really cool. But that was weeks and weeks ago. So my notes were predicated on the idea that Tom Voltaire is doing a monastery, because that's what he told me he wanted to do. Right? But then he thought about it. And it wasn't even that he told me he wanted to do it. Let me put it this way. He was like, that's cool. Can I do it? I'm like, yeah, you don't have enough money, but you can get started. He goes, okay, so I can spend the money now and get started, and then I'd have to find somebody to get finished. I said, yeah, and probably you will, by the time the funds run out for your construction, you will have found more money. He's like, okay. Okay didn't mean let's do it. Okay, but now I understand. Let me think about it. And so when we came back, he was like, I don't like the idea. He likes the idea that he doesn't have a home. He's a monk. He doesn't need one. Eventually, he'll become immortal and all this other stuff. And Nosa feels the same way. And it's like, I'm a barbarian. I don't want a stronghold, which is good because I don't know what a barbarian stronghold would be. I can't, I guess, a barbarian can't. So there was a lot of me being like, whoa, Tom, what? And it wasn't me saying, Tom, everybody wants a stronghold. Are you crazy? I'm like, no. It was based on discussions we had in person over IM and email. I thought that's what Tom was doing. And so I was like, Tom, if you don't want a stronghold, don't build one. Do I think the players play differently because they were focused on the stream? No. I've played with these guys now for quite a while. Do the players know the power levels of the artifacts they have? Yeah, when I give them an item, I give them the text from the DM's guide. Do I use minis and maps for combat? Yes. Will you ever return to the few tutorials for tools like Fantasy Grounds? No, I will never do another tutorial for Fantasy Grounds. I will use we'll do a video about Fantasy Grounds, and you'll get some idea of how it works if you never have. But Fantasy Grounds now is huge compared to when it was when I first did my tutorials for it. And they don't need, and I did those tutorials because I was really dissatisfied with the quality of the tutorials they had then. That was like 6 years ago. It was a long time ago. They have much better tutorials now. They don't need my help. This is a good question, Raucus Bacchus. Are you concerned with adding all these raw streams with F-bombs which is one of I he means, I know you don't, I know you're probably unaware of this, but he means the word fuck. And other salty language to my family-friendly YouTube channel. Not really. My YouTube channel is mine. So it has to represent my attitudes and my quixotic personality. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. I contain multitudes. I do want somebody to be able to share this video about alignment, share this video about the difference between the railroad and the sandbox, and not have to worry about their audience. But if it's me speaking live, then you get me. I run D&D for my friends, and so you get us talking the way we talk. And I can't, if I were to compromise that, then we wouldn't be being ourselves. We would be doing some fake thing. And I think there's enough of that in the world. Let's see. I agree with Galactose. Hey, welcome back, Galactose. I think the players out of the room are probably, yeah, the players who aren't, when you say, come with me, let's go outside and talk, the players in the room are probably still playing D&D. They're talking about what the hell's going on and stuff like that, typically. What did my players think about the session afterwards while discussing in the parking lot? They had a great time. I was happy. I was really surprised. They had a really good time. They were happy to get back to D&D. They were happy to be thinking about it again. They wanted to talk about the other group a lot. We spent about 2 hours in the parking lot afterwards, so it was very late in the morning when we left. I'm on vacation. What's their excuse? And E3. And so it was a lot of, can I do this? What would have happened? They wanted to ask me a lot of questions about what would have happened if we had done this? What would have happened if we had done that? And I don't give them answers. I just remind them of the things they already know. And they go, and they're usually able to figure it out. And so that was it. It was mostly just an after-action report. And a lot of Lars being like, yeah, I realize I got to do this and I got to do that. And it's been a long time since we played, so he's reverted to some of his secretive stuff. But he's playing a rogue. He wants to be secretive, right? Just, Lars, you can't be secretive from me. Like, I need to know what's going on. By all means, if you want to be secretive from the other players, I've passed a lot of notes as a player, from player to GM and player to player. But don't just clam up, because then everything grinds to a halt. What is my avatar? Heathen. Philistine. I should volunteer time to do cut downs for me. Grant, you volunteered to do a lot of stuff. It would be, the problem is that I want to retain editorial control. It has to be me picking takes and picking mark-ins and mark-outs and stuff like that. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I could you know, if there was a huge increase in the production, which is not on the horizon, by the way, if there was a huge increase in the production, then if I had Geek and Sundry behind me doing this, then it would be a very different idea, because then I could just be like, those guys will edit and they'll do fine. And if they pick different takes than I would, I don't care, because the number of people watching is so much greater that it's worth the difference in authorial voice, which is, as an author, something that's important to me. The idea that this take is the one I wanted. It's one of the reasons it takes me so long sometimes to do those YouTube videos. Let's see. Do I have a preferred class race when creating a new character? No. Paladin. When the party was asking about the hows and whats of Sir Peloton's offer, you mentioned things such as the storehouse of relics to remove any consistencies in the story Peloton was reading. But did you do that as a DM fielding questions, not as Peloton? Do you think this is a DM sacrifice to players' right to have suspicions? They weren't that suspicious. They knew. I played Sir John. I deliberately played Sir John as being not worried about a lot of this stuff, because he's used to stuff like this. He doesn't think it's unusual, but the players are suspicious. The players knew. Lars knew that, and this I regretted, but there's nothing I can do about it. Lars knew what was going on with the Thursday group because I told him. And so when Tom didn't know, so when a knight rides up with a stylized flower, Tom has literally no idea what that is. But Lars did. And so Lars like, Tom, ask him what kind of flower that is. Right. So there was never really a time, I don't know how it seemed to you guys, but I guarantee you, there was never a time from the moment I said stylized flower till now when the players weren't convinced that Sir Peloton was a bad dude. Right. The drama was, can they get other people to understand that he's a bad guy? Do I find that doing a one-on-one session with my more quiet players usually works out the way it did with Gertz? No, it wasn't that Gertz was quiet and that's why that went that way. I usually do my one-on-one sessions with my quiet players because that's when they open up. The session with Gertz went the way it did because, unlike a normal D&D session where there's an adventure and it's about exploration, whether that exploration is geographic, exploring a dungeon, or exploring a mystery, almost all my one-on-one sessions have been in big cities because I want that feeling of solving a crime. and that's a lot of fun. And then it's up to the players to do what they want, and I just play the NPCs, and the players are a lot more. And that would like I'm sure if I'd done that with Gertz, he would have been a lot more outgoing, and he would have opened up more. But we were on a schedule, right? I had to get his character through all this stuff, and then end him up at Torquay meeting Baltair in order for the entire campaign to come together. All these two different, previously unrelated story threads. Nothing happening in Tor had anything to do with what was happening in Bedegar. Now they both need something to do with each other so they can adventure together. Did more cool stuff happen with that magic mirror? Nope. Let's see. Can you pick up and put down threads? Assuming there's. Wow, I'm way behind in the chat. People are. How does the below work? If they dug down enough, would someone get there? No. It is. It's mystical and not easy to understand or explain, because that's what makes it interesting. If it were easy to quantify, then some of the magic would be lost. Which, by the way, is why D&D magic is so weird. Sorry, Game Viking. Stop coming on so frequently. I need to lead a life here. Yeah, I don't know. The Twitch thing, this Q&A is a lot more convenient than making a video and editing it together. Otherwise, I would do that. But it's easy just to sit here and talk to you guys for an hour, and then it goes up on YouTube and it's there forever. How was my day? How was work? I'm on vacation. My day was great. Are we going to do another world building stream? Yeah, we're not done with that. Do you think the two groups are going to come up with a new team name? I hope so. They don't have to. Are there any other DMs I think of as running a strong game? Not that you know. My friend Jim is the best DM I've ever played with. My friend Brad, who was my DM in high school and college, is a close second. Am I enjoying streaming on YouTube? I'm enjoying YouTube. Streaming, I'm 50-50 on. Is it actually good for your stress levels to be doing all this? While I'm streaming, I'm enjoying it. It's leading up to it and doing it afterwards. That it's like theater. While you're on stage, it's awesome. It's before that and after that. You're like, oh. But is the Evolve Studio an option? No, the Evolve Studio is it's not a conference room. It's a tiny little room with 2 chairs and a bunch of cameras and lights and stuff, and then a whole bunch of computer banks over there that you don't see on screen. It's a good question. It's not a dumb question. And Johnny Flash answered it. You know what? I was. I have often felt, Gasoline Moth, that Critical Role would see a sharp increase in viewership if they finished the story of Vox Machina, because I think probably most people think that Critical Role is Vox Machina. It's not. I don't even think Critical Role has to be those 7 players. There are other nights in the week. But if they said, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and start at first level with a new game, oh my God, the number of people who would be like, I want in on the ground floor of that would shoot up. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are seeing, but even this game, a lot of the weirdness is you guys are not watching, you guys are not getting the information the way the players would. These players are already super invested in the setting. They already know what's going on. So you're already kind of left behind. So this is still not the ideal stream to start watching. Which product did I use for the Stronghold charts? It's the one between my ears. Have I published my Stronghold rules on DM's Guild? Negative, they're not in shape yet. Did Gertz get kitted out? Yeah, I told him, I said, when you're at Torquay, I told him before the stream started. I said, when you reach Torquay, you can, like, Razalax paid you for your work. Every day, everybody got paid. So you can take your money and you can buy pretty much anything you want except plate mail. Not because it's too expensive, but because technologically, plate is not common. It's super rare. Which is the best? Jace wants to know which is the best video to get players hooked. The reason I recorded the Why Do We Play D&D, where I tell the story of Gink, who was secretly a Slod, I made that video because I wanted people to go, oh, I need to show my friends this, and they're going to want to play. I don't know how successful it was, but it's one of the best stories. It's one of the best things that's ever happened in a D&D game of mine. Let's see. Any other questions? Hang on a second. Hello, Matt, says NJack177. Hello. Hello, NJack. When to withhold information from the players? Clockwork, the map maker. I tell players whatever I think their characters would know and the things they need to know to make reasonable decisions about the situation presented to them. I don't tell them things that neither they nor their characters could reasonably know. How do I handle different level characters? I throw them in the same game and let them play. The Thursday night group is 4th level. These guys are 6th level. They're going to be in a group together, and the 4th level group will catch up. That's just math. They'll catch up because it takes so much XP to get from 6th to 7th level. I'll get back to the Reddit questions. How do I have a conversation with a person about not being in the game group anymore? It's on a player-to-player basis. See, oh, I'm almost caught up. Yep, I am caught up now. Why did the wizard, when she was kidnapped, not leave any tracks? Glacial Gaffer asks a good question. The wizard, Fulgara, which is a bad Latin formulation, but I wanted it to sound feminine, was kidnapped, and I said there were no tracks, but I didn't say there were no tracks. I said, it's too bad your ranger is missing, because I believe in a thing called niche protection, which 5th edition is not huge on. And so I house rule that if you want to follow tracks, you need a ranger, because I want rangers to feel special. And I want the players to feel like if they don't have one of these, they can keep playing, they can keep doing stuff. It just presents a different challenge. Not having a thief means you can't, they're not going to be able to disarm traps, because that's what thieves do. That's just down to taste. Once again, I'm sure there are people who are like, oh my God, I can't believe you. But everybody had fun last night. So, you know, and they knew that. They knew that if they'd had Ellison, their ranger with them, he's in hell, then, literally, then they would have been able to follow the tracks. Any chance of seeing Lady Serial in the game? Absolutely. Jess comes back to Southern California all the time, and she would love to play with us. Okay, so here we are at 15 minutes till. We've covered a lot of stuff. Let's see. We talked about talking in the parking lot. We talked about the conversation in the parking lot. This happens all the time. I talk about how the difference in my setting between a knight and like a cavalier and a bard. Like anybody can be a knight. Like Anthony Hopkins, the actor, is a knight, but that dude isn't a paladin, right? We understand that, don't we? And I will say stuff like, the bards distribute the nobles' proclamations, gather information about what's happening in the local towns, and report back to the barons. They are the nervous system of feudalism. They certify the laws, whereas lots of knights are paladins or fighters. They enforce the law. They are the muscles of feudalism. And people inevitably, when I say that, go, "That's cool. How does that work?" And I'm like, I think I just explained how it worked. I obviously don't understand your question. They want more details, but I don't have more details. So, did I tell you the story about how the ranger is in hell? He was seduced. Caloril the Vile was trying to open a portal to summon Orcus, and there was a huge black portal, like not in the ground, like on the wall behind him. And every round, the portal got its own initiative and action, and it would try to mind control various people. Whoever was nearby would randomly pick somebody. So this is how crazy it was, and it was all I rolled in front of the players twice in a row. There were 6 players, so it was a 1 in 6. So 1 in 36. I picked Ellison Red's Ranger the first time, and Ellison Red's Ranger the second time. Pure happenstance. Then he had to fail his save twice. The first time he failed to save, and he walks toward the portal. He uses his entire movement to get to the portal, but it's not enough for him to enter the portal. But now he's right next to the portal. And he's like, whew. And he didn't adjust position. He kept firing his arrow because he's like, what are the odds of me? Well, it turns out not bad enough, because he got selected again. I rolled randomly, and he failed to save again, and he walked into the portal. The portal seduced him and brought him into hell. I wanted to run an adventure where he was in hell, but I was so busy at work. I feel really bad about that too, because I love Red. I love playing with Red, and I thought him having a solo adventure in hell would be a lot of fun. I never got around to it. I have too much on my plate. Do I take lots of notes? Some. Lars seemed to think that you knew a lot, or that you were trying to get him to tell you what he thinks. We covered that earlier in the video. Let's see. How long have I been working on the world? Oh, somebody is. I want to make sure people are not. Okay. Lars is talking. That was Lars talking to me about his relationship with his brother and his alignment. So let's see. How long have I been working on the world? Somebody asked. People regularly ask, how long have you been working on this world? Since about 2000. This is the second campaign setting I built from scratch. And so 16 years. People ask me, is this the same world your novels is set in? Basically. But this is the prehistory of that world. Hayden and the events of Priest happen hundreds and hundreds of years after all this, and they're not. Don't try to make one fit into the other. I wanted to write about this character. I wanted to write a fantasy novel about this character and what happened to him, and that meant I needed a world, and it was going to take a long time to build one from scratch. So I just stole my own D&D setting. The story and the setting aren't really related. Pardon me. We talked about how Gertz did not feel put upon. He knew that we weren't going to get to him. I told him before the game. He's like, "Oh, mine's sitting, hang around." We might be able to. Could you post a description of the goal and their faith? I only have a few gods. And what happened? Here's how I do. This is an important one. Trogaf's question is a good one. Let us talk about how I do some of this stuff. Let's talk about a pantheon. So there are gods in the worlds of D&D. Lots of them. You're going to run a D&D setting, and maybe you want to make your own pantheon. So that means you need to have all the gods figured out, right? No. Maybe there's a good reason to do that, but it's a lot of work. Maybe the players would enjoy it more if they could read pages and pages and pages of all the different gods, like the Forgotten Realms gods, and all the things that find the god. All right, read, oh, what does this god stand for? But what I do is I say, okay, here's this guy. My system is not only unique to me, it's also unique to this area. No humans anywhere else worship saints, really, but the people of Vazilia do. So it's like, here's Adun, he's the god of this area, and he has these are his 6 major saints. There's many more, but they're obscure. And then I just say the name of the saint and what they stand for. And then the player goes, oh, that guy sounds cool. And I go, okay, and then I write that guy up. So when you say, do you have this write-up for the goal and their faith? Only the gods Tamgul the Black. I almost finished saying that, and I should have. Tamgul the Black is one of the gods. There's a couple of players in the last 16 years have worshipped or known about the gold gods. I'm glad, Silverback, that you were able to get some inspiration from my stuff. A lot of that stuff I wrote because I thought back in when I started in the 3rd edition, I thought I was going to publish it as a setting, so I tried to make it original. Is Anna the one who? Yes, Anna is Raising Girl. Anna is the one who used the portable hole to save Lars and Red. It was brilliant. It was genius. Let's see, is right. So Two Muffins asked a good question. Two Muffins said the whole thing when you let Anna not pick St. Llewellyn wasn't in the notes. Yeah, because she said she wanted to become a cleric, and so I wrote up here in the thing. I can go plus and make it a little bit bigger. I said, yeah, she's in this town. There's a church, St. Llewellyn, and one of the novices will teach her about the faith of St. Llewellyn. But then talking to her, I realized, oh, she might not want to do that. She might want to worship one of the gods of her people. She is one of the goal, and that's what she decided to do. But in the parking lot, we talked about how she's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. She kind of misunderstood the way gods and stuff worked, and she didn't realize that there are lots of saints, and she could probably just like the Forgotten Realms gods are gods of abstract ideas, and I find that somewhat hard to relate to. The god of war, whereas the gods of the humans in my world are sociological. They express the virtues of that culture, the virtues and vices of that culture. So there's a god that is courage in battle. Courage in battle. That is a virtue. But the notion of the abstract you addressed as the concept of laser tag, the idea of the abstract concept of light or life or battle being a thing there are gods for does not make any sense in the setting. And she's like, oh, and she didn't really get that. So she may go back. You may see next time she might not be worshipping a blood god. She might be worshipping another saint. Who knows? Did Trogaf ask about Lars? Trogaf asks a lot of questions. What alignment would I say Kaval is? He's chaotic good. No, Kaval is lawful good? I think he's lawful good. He's justice. He might be lawful neutral. The gods in my setting don't really have alignments. Their saints do. And so you have several saints that might have different alignments, and they all fall under this one portfolio of this one god. Did I already do the giveaway? No, Friday. The comments are closed because we hit 17,000 thanks to Geek and Sundry. So we got to do another giveaway because I was expecting this giveaway to last for a little while. Lars's Thieves Guild is not in a sewer, and that would, if he wanted to build his, if he was in a big city, then, which he's not, they don't have sewers in medieval towns like the medieval-esque, they're not literally medieval-esque towns, they don't have sewer systems. But if he was in a city with a sewer system, then that would, I would discourage him from doing that, because a Thieves Guild is a place where the stock in trade of a Thieves Guild is information. Hard to get information when you're in a sewer. Better if you have a shop or a network of shops in town. Because then people come into the shop and you can listen to them and say things. But if you wanted to do it, I would say, of course. I could find a way to make that dramatic and interesting. How much time are you willing to commit to fixing stream problems before just giving up? I thought that question was somewhat, how do you answer a question like that? How much time are you willing to commit to this? 18.6 seconds. So I answered it somewhat. How does Cabal relate to Adun? They're both gods. They're brothers. And they're one of them is the god. Adun is the god of this area. If you look at the map in my handout, and then Cabal is the god of the other area over the mountains, which is basically culturally the same as this area. Yeah, you're going to meet Cabal, I think, at some point, Twitch name, in the books. I think there's going to be a point where Hayden, in a moment of desperation, meets Cabal, because the gods are, manifest. Let's see. It seemed like some of my players, we talked about this, were really shy. Well, that's because they're not professional actors or professionally engaging people. Okay, so we've covered all the stuff in here. Do we have any more? We have 4 minutes before the end of what alignment is Hayden's Saint? I think she's almost certainly chaotic good, which is kind of where Hayden is right now. Hayden was lawful good. He was raised to be lawful good. But if you notice, Hayden does not work with the Castellan. Hayden doesn't trust the Castellan. The Castellan wants law first. The Castellan is lawful good. And that's where Hayden used to be when he was a young man. But now he's chaotic good. Like, good is important to him. So, my paper was Slate B, guess neutral good. Maybe. I mean, she doesn't really have an alignment. She's a character in the book. But neutral good makes as much sense as anything. So we are 4 minutes away from the end. If you guys have any questions about anything else, let me have them. Is there anything else about the stream? It's a lot more railroady than what you would have expected listening to my games, because I extol the virtue of the sandbox. But the first 5 levels of my game are very sandboxy. But that whole time, I know what the next 5 to 10 levels is going to be, and it's one adventure. So the idea is there's all these different things that the characters are leveling up and picking up different threads and stuff's happening. It comes to a climax. They come out the other end of that, and then they go on the major adventure of them being, we have been established as heroes, and now this is our great quest. And so that's where they are right now. They are on a rail. They still have 3 threads. There's the main rail of Night Below. There's the Lady Serial thread, which is a completely different thing. It's not a branch of Night Below. It's a completely different thing. And there's Lord Saxton and then the Black Rose. And now both groups are involved with both. And so it's up to them to decide at some point, and it's not going to be easy for them to do. They're going to be like, oh, we got to keep going, more Night Below. We need to find. We found Pinna at some point. We need to find it, and it's like, but we have to put this down. Otherwise, Lady Serial's got 3 of the swords. What happens when she gets 4? Right? It's going to be up to them. There's not going to be a right answer. There's not going to be a right moment. They're going to have to decide to put down one and pick up the other. Glacial Gaffer, do I make things up in my campaign stories, such as the teleport stones in response to the players creating characters to fit their backstories? No. The goal stones were there. It's something I ripped off from my friend Jim. I steal all the best stuff from all the people I've ever played with. The goal stones were something I stole from my friend Jim. They are human marker stones that mark elven way roads. These primitive humans figured out how the elves use ley lines to get around, and they marked them. The elves don't need these things. The elves can just use them. They don't even really understand what the humans mean when they talk about these things. They're just like, what are you talking about? We just get around. But the Ghoul figured out how to use them. The Ghoul kind of reverse engineered. So there's huge backstory to these stones. And they were already there. They've been there for years, and no one has used them, and no one has thought about them until my friend Tom played a monk, and he had, as a hermit, it said, you have a major breakthrough. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, well, I don't know what, it sounds cool, but I don't know what that is. And he said, I said, listen, Tom, you don't have to decide what your breakthrough is now. This is some good stuff. This is some good DM stuff right now. I said, Tom, you don't have to decide what your breakthrough is right now. You can, if you encounter a mystery in the game, you can just decide, I want this to be my breakthrough. And then we will reverse engineer and say, that's what it was the entire time. And that's what he did. There was a point where they encountered one of these stones. And he's like, what are these things? And he's like, and I told him, he goes, could this be my, could I know what these things are? And I'm like, if you want to. He goes, yeah, I want to know what these things are. I'm like, okay, Tom. And I took him outside and we talked about it, and he's like, that is amazing. He still had to make some rolls, some insight checks to use them, and it's getting easier and easier to do. So it was the hermit background. It was, I have lots of secrets in my campaign setting. And I think we'll do the same thing for collaborates. You need to plant stuff in there that are secret from everyone in the game. Don't tell anybody. And I still have lots of secrets in my campaign setting, tons of them that the players have never picked up. They're just, and I don't mind. You can't be too excited about your own secrets and how cool they are that you spring them on the players unawares. It has to be up to them. And eventually, you just get used to having these things sitting around there, and then every couple of years, a player goes bing and discovers one. You're like, oh, we're off. And it's super cool. Matt, you should fill out your Twitch info page. Twitch info page? What's that? So it's 7 o'clock, everybody. That was an hour of Q&A. I thought the game last night went really well. I don't know how much longer we're going to keep streaming because it is a colossal amount of work, and I'm not sure what the reward is, basically. I'm not sure what the output is other than help you guys be better DMs and see how I do stuff, which you don't need an infinite number of streams to do. Once we've done 3 of them, probably, you'll have enough, and we'll have done 3 Q&As, 3 sessions, 3 Q&As, and then I can keep going back to making YouTube videos, and anybody who wants to can go watch me run a game and see how I do it. And you'll have gotten a lot of great advice, and I think it'll be diminishing returns after that. You'll still get something out of each stream, but it's always going to be, I learned a couple things, I learned a thing, I learned, you get it. And I want to keep making YouTube videos. They're fun. And maybe we'll go back to doing one Monday video about theory and one Thursday video about how my game went last night. So I think that's going to be it for tonight. I'm glad you guys, sorry Unranking, you showed up just at the end. It's 7:01, so I'm going to click stop streaming because I swore it was going to be 1 hour, and we're now a little bit over. So the next time we meet, it will be Sunday at 11 o'clock for the Collaborous stream. We're going to continue making a world. I want to continue fleshing it out. I just want to, if the world of Collaborous was a clock, we were sweeping around very generally and just naming stuff and give me something interesting about this. And then we hit a place where we named it Narashul, and we came up with something cool about the Goliath, and we had a whole flood of awesome stuff. And I'm like, okay, now that we've made a clean spot, let's clean the whole thing, right? And so we are going back around and doing that level of detail. And we got about 3/4 of the way. We have the Northern Sanction, the Bantor Step, and Zir, I think, left to do. And then we're going to populate with POIs and maybe talk about some of the gods. So we'll plant some dungeons and some adventures, talk about the gods, and then we're done with Collaborous. And I'm going to put it up. I may do lots of stuff with. Probably what I'm going to do with Collaborous is make a free version that is the PDF that you've been seeing with more detail, and then actually make a pay what you want version that has illustrations where I pay people. I know a lot of artists, and do the layout and make it look like a real product, and put a lot more writing into it and flesh it out, so people who want to use it can use it. We started making this world. Let's do it. Let's finish it. So I think that's it. I'm going to say goodbye. If you guys have any questions, follow me on Twitter at mattcolville.com. At Matt Colville, I should say. Otherwise, I will see you Sunday. Peace.